Michael Melville claims he saw stars on the daylight side of Earth. Is he lying?
Jera, do you really not understand this? You will be able to see stars in space on the daylight side of the Earth. You'd be able to see stars on the daylight side of the Moon. You'd even be able to see stars on the daylight side of Mercury, if your viewing conditions were set up in such a way as to block out all sunlit objects in your field of view. For people on space missions, this viewing condition does not occur very often.
The snow is lit up pretty well by a nearby street light. The flakes are brighter than any stars would appear, and the lights in the distance are much brighter still. When I put a piece of paper in front of the camera, simulating the surface of the moon, and shine a flashlight on it from about 2 feet away, you can see that the snow disappears. This is because the camera has an automatic exposure setting, which is now being affected by the bright foreground. Even the distant lights disappear. Keep in mind, this lit piece of paper is nowhere near as bright as the surface of the moon would appear to the astronauts' cameras. Our eyes do much the same as this camera, which is why the astronauts do not see stars as long as there are bright objects in their field of view.
Especially in spacecraft with multiple windows. When they are in sunlight, bright light comes through those windows. When they're in shadow, they have cabin lights on.
And we can look out these windows and see the Earth drift by and see the moon drift by.
What did you see?
And I saw a light out there, okay? This is after we had witnessed the upper stage rocket next to us make an evasive maneuver to miss the moon. Later missions had crashed into the moon so that we could determine the seismic effect of crashing into the moon.
So you saw a light?
So we saw a light, and we thought, wonder what that is. You know, there are a lot of lights out there when you're not looking in the direction of the sun. There are a lot of stars, and they're all fixed relative to each other. Now, one of them starts moving, or it's moving, and we know that that's another object. It's not a star.
Stars don't move.
Well, they move, but they're so damn far away that we're not going to see them.
How long did it follow you?
Exactly.
Toward the sun, nothing can be seen but its blinding disk, whereas down some there is simply a black void. To see the stars, the pupil must be allowed to relax, to open wide enough to let the starlight form a visible image on the retina, and that can be done only by blocking out the sunlight. In practical terms, that means putting metal plates over all 5 windows, and then pointing the telescope at exactly the right angle, an angle that is not only away from the sun, but which also does not permit any sunlight to bounce off the LM or CM structure into the telescope's field of view.
When they're in EVAs, they wear helmets that can refract light. Stars in space are not that much brighter than they would be if you looked at them from the surface of the Earth on a good, dark, clear night with no light pollution. Casing obviously didn't know this, But then, most conspiracy theories are born of ignorance, not insight. Have you ever tried the experiment that I've suggested? It's very simple to do. Just find a nice picture window somewhere and sit on a floor at night a few feet away from it with all the lights off in the room. Let your eyes get dark adapted, and then you'll see a few stars out the window. Now have someone turn the lights on in the room. Voila! The stars will disappear. Even relatively dim light, reflected on the walls around that window, will ruin your night vision to the point where those stars will all but completely vanish. You could do this experiment yourself. It's very easy to do, but I don't think you have the guts.
When adapting his website to the printed page, Phil Plait interviewed Parize, who told him he could barely see them at all. He had to turn off all the lights inside the shuttle to even glimpse the stars. And even then, the red lights from the control panels reflected in the glass, making viewing the stars difficult. Being outside the Earth's atmosphere doesn't make the stars appear brighter at all. And yet, Melville, under the exact same conditions as Parize, had no problem seeing the stars and planets. Ironically, in spite of this quotation from a shuttle astronaut, Plait admits on his website that if you were standing on the moon, you would indeed see the stars, even during the day.